joda zoge jona Nage jinso jebe zonamje dola benjir sanje dobara sho sanje joda zoge jona Tanjo bado dane yeso je nage jinso jebe zonamje dola benjir sanje dobara sho Sanje joda zoge jonam la chanjo bando dane yeso je nage jinso jebe zonam Toda benjir sanje dobare sho Om ye dharma hetu prabhavam hetum tesham dathagato yavatat tesham evam vati mahashamanaye swaha Om ye dharma hetu prabhavam hetum tesham dathagato yavatat tesham chayo nirodha evam vati mahashamanaye swaha Om ye hetum tesham dathagato yavatat tesham chayo nirodha evam vati mahashamanaye swaha All phenomena arise from causes. The causes are taught by the Tathagata. The cessation causes as well as taught by the greats here. Dhyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasambhati Bodhi Swaha Dhyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasambhati Bodhi Swaha Dhyata Om Gati Gati Parasambhati Bodhi Swaha Dhyata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasambhati Bodhi Swaha Okay. What we discussed thus far is that we have two aspirations, fearlessness and infinite happiness. And what blocks us from attaining these two states are afflictive obscurations and accommodative obscurations. And what remedies do we have to overcome these two obstructions or obscurations is known as wisdom of emptiness, as the liberating path, and the ripening paths such as the Bodhicitta as a driving force to eradicate the cognitive obscurations, and the renunciation required to assist the Bodhicitta and requires a factor to get rid of the fears of life. In other words, to get rid of the afflictive obscurations. So this is what we learned. And also from this what we learned is that the Buddha identified that at the root of all the problems lies ignorance. This is what the Buddha identified. And what kinds of ignorance are there? This is the next question. And as the Buddha identified 4 kinds of ignorance. Of course, there are so many kinds of ignorance in our own life, we can see that very clearly, that oftentimes our problems, they are sheer because of our ignorance, not knowing things the way it is, the way things work in the future, the way things worked in the past. Not knowing these, we end up in problems. So this is this is a reality, that ignorance is what lies at the core of all the problems. And Buddha identified the four kinds of ignorance, which we can see that it's so beautifully captivated as the remedies, captivated as what is known as the four seals of the Buddha's teachings, the four seals. And the seals, say, I'm sure you know what is meant by this. If a building or a document is sealed by government, what does it mean by that? Anyone? It's closed. It's locked. You cannot touch it. But if a building is sealed, you cannot touch this building, even though it is your home. You cannot touch it. There's some issue there, and the government is taking it very seriously. You are not entitled to touch it till the government says, okay, now we break the seal, you can go in. Till that point, this is sealed, indicating that you are not to touch the building. So likewise, these are four lines, which metaphorically it is like sealed by the Buddha, saying that if you are somebody, I earlier indicated that the Buddha is very flexible in many ways, and number one, very practical, extremely practical, and very realistic, and very rational, very compassionate. At the core of the Buddha's teaching is compassion, more than what is right and what is wrong. What is right and what is wrong at the core, or the compassion is core. For Buddha, compassion is the core. Compassion is core. What is right and wrong can change. For example, say that during say the what is that? Newton. During the Newtonian physics, the classical Newtonian physics was held to be true. And then with the paradigm shift in physics, quantum mechanics, relativity, they came into existence, and the Newtonian physics, they become like the obsolete. So it changed. What was once considered as the truth of the physical world came to be discovered that this is not the case. There's a subtler reality there. So there we see that even the truth changes. But for Buddha, the compassion is the ground. While the truth is so important, but the compassion is the ground. So with this mind, the Buddha identified the four mistaken views, or referred to as the four misperceptions, as responsible for all our problems. And that to overcome this, the Buddha identified the four teachings, referred to as the four seals. And these four teachings, metaphorically, they are sealed by the Buddha, saying that anybody who seeks to acquire the fearlessness, acquire total freedom from miseries, one has to follow these four lines. If you don't follow these four lines, then there's no way by which you can attain freedom from miseries. So this is what the Buddha sealed, metaphorically sealed these four teachings. So what are the four teachings which we read just this morning? All composite things are impermanent. Number one, all contaminated things are suffering nature. Number three, everything is in nature, emptiness, selflessness. Transcending sorrow is absolute peace. Where is it? on this book, The Blaze?
Page 7.
Page 7. Page 7. Okay. These 4 seals, and as I said, as I indicated, that the Buddha very clearly taught that these are the 4 lines, the 4 teachings, which everybody has to follow if you want to get away from miseries. And if you don't want to get away from miseries, that's fine. Finally, whether you like to practice it or not practice it is entirely up to the individual. There's no compulsion there. There's no force, nobody to force you. But the point is that if you're suffering from tuberculosis, whether you like it or not, you have to take the antibiotics. Okay. Dr. Manali, is there any other doctors or nurses? Doctor, nurse? Doctor, there are 2 doctors together. Okay, there, good. So, say seeing that let's say if you're suffering from tuberculosis, whether you take the medicines or not, it's entirely up to the individual. If you are serious to get away from the tuberculosis, what should you do? There's no choice other than to take the medicines. As soon as rifampicin, ethambutol, you have to take these medicines, antibiotics. If you don't take this, there's no cure as of now. Okay, so likewise, if you want to get away from the miseries, there's only way we have to understand these 4 lines, we have to practice these 4 lines, and only then we can expect to attain what is known as nirvana or freedom from suffering. Okay. But at the same time, let us not forget what I said earlier, that we're not to follow blindly. Simply because this is the only way doesn't mean that you have to follow blindly. So take this information and then subject them to analysis to see if it makes sense that without this I cannot get away from the problems. Just analyze it. This is so important. In fact, Buddha would be very happy if you subject what he taught to analysis instead of following them blindly. Okay, so these 4, there are 4 things. Oftentimes when I meet with people and who I can see that they are very anxietic in nature, who are prone to anxiety, to tension, so easily becoming anxious and stress. For small things, they become easily stressed. I tell them to recite these 4 lines as often. Every day, recite these 4 lines and reflect on the meanings. Because as you reflect on the meanings and recite these 4 lines, your mind tends to expand to see the reality more closely, the more expansive, more pervasive reality, rather than being simply trapped within the confines of your own thinking. So easily you're chosen in a very small world, you are trapped there. The moment you see something bigger than this, you cannot take it and you are being shocked. So this is how we go into the anxiety mode. You become panicky, and the long term it becomes chronic depression. So reflecting these 4 lines would be very helpful. So first of all, before we go through these 4 lines, we need to know what are the 4 misconceptions. Misconceptions, or the kinds of ignorance. The first is misconceiving impermanent phenomena as permanent. Misconceiving impermanent phenomena as permanent, number 1. Number 2, misconceiving impure things as pure. Number 3, misconceiving the suffering nature as of happiness. Misconceiving suffering nature as of happiness. And finally, misconceiving selfless nature as of selfhood. Let me repeat the 4. Misconceiving impermanent phenomena as permanent. Misconceiving impure things as pure. Misconceiving misery as happiness, or suffering nature as happiness. and misconceiving selfless nature as of selfhood. Okay, this selfhood, selfless nature as of selfhood. Okay, let me repeat. Misconceiving impermanent phenomena as permanent, misconceiving impure things as pure, misconceiving misery as happiness, and misconceiving the selfless nature as of selfhood. As of selfhood. Okay, 4. And don't worry, we're going to study all these one by one. Okay. And the 4 remedies. The remedies the Buddha taught to overcome these 4 levels of ignorance is the 4 seals taught here. All composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are suffering nature. Everything is the nature of emptiness, selflessness. Transcending sorrow is absolute peace or peace, and some people translate it as transcending sorrow is nirvana. All translations are correct. For information, given that this is day 1, what I'd like to share with you is that when I tell you that these are the important points, like the 4 seals, 4 misconceptions, the 2 obscurations, I would highly recommend you to remember these points. Don't just think that, okay, yeah, that's easy, gross, subtle, gross, mono, afflictive, subtle, mono, cognitive. And if you're not too particularly, try to remember these points systematically, later on it gets accumulated. It's accumulated, and over time, those people who are so diligent with learning all these points, later on when I say there are 2 obscurations, in your mind, it very quickly comes to your mind. Cognitive, afflictive, and cognitive. But afflictive, this. Cognitive, this. Okay. Whereas if you're not too diligent, just take for granted, okay, I know it. I know it is very easy. When it is so fresh, it's very easy. Then if you don't register them in your mind so well, that, these are the very important information, and without these, then later on, then things will become so the cumbersome, the huge, and I cannot make it. So it's entirely up to the individual. How it suggests is that right from the beginning, make it a point that you have these on your fingertips. Learn to make sure that these are on your fingertips. And why I'm saying this is that there's a difference between there was what I noticed in one center where center which was maybe, let's say, 25 years old, and there was one gentleman who is otherwise very intelligent, and that he is also keen. He's also keen to learn the sophisticated things, philosophy, but he's not systematically learning. He must have some feeling that I've been one of the eldest members in this, so I know all these things. Whereas when we first started the Nalanda Master's course, when we first started the Master's course, there was one girl in that center who joined the center just a few months ago, 2 or 3 months, and she was into Buddhism just that long, 4 or 5 months, that's it. Whereas this gentleman was in Buddhism for the last 20 years. And when I was given the teaching, I asked questions. And this gentleman, he raised his hand, and he gave an answer, yes, it's correct, but something's incomplete. And then the young lady raised her hand, and she gave the answer. She gave a very good answer. I was so fascinated. Wow, so good. This gentleman, I'm expecting the answer, actually, that answer should be coming from the gentleman. It didn't come from him. And later on, because I know the gentleman so well, I told him that Did you see the difference between the answer that you gave and the answer that this young girl gave? Did you see the difference? And he said, yes. I said, what is the difference? He said that the answer the girl gave is very systematic. Anybody who listens to the answer will be convinced, okay, this is the answer. Whereas the answer that he gave, the people can get lost, not knowing, what he's saying. So this is the difference, and I said that's very true. It's because that this girl has started to do the Nalanda diploma course very systematically. But she's just attending 10-day course, 5-day course, 6 days course, and then finally there's nothing there. So therefore, what I would suggest is that what we're doing here, although it's 7-day course, but 7 into 3 is 21 sessions. We have minimum 21 sessions. 21 sessions is a huge number of the sessions, and not only 21 sessions, but there's a flow there, whereas in other places we don't have the flow. One session today, 21 days, and people go back home, and again they are engrossed in some other responsibilities, their family responsibilities, and the flow is not there. So what I'm saying is that here, while you're here, make a point that whatever the points, the 4 seals, then the 2 obscurations, the 2 goals, and so forth, make sure that you remember all these. Okay. And our job is inner life. Just see that these 4 misconceptions, we talked about what? Misconceiving impermanent phenomena as permanent. How that creates so much of problem within the mind. And viewing impure things as pure, how it gives so much of pains within us. Viewing suffering nature of happiness, how? And finally, viewing the selfless nature as of selfhood, which is that while everything is like dream, all coming from your own mind, but we see them as so objective real, not at all coming from a mind. So how this misconception underscores all our miseries. So this is what you have to learn. And for example, the first one, let's say that misconceiving impermanent phenomena as permanent. Say for example, let's say now people are so crazy after iPhone 14, right? Yes? 14 Pro. Right. Okay. iPhone, let's say brand new iPhone 14 Pro. Right? So there, say if you ever happen to have it today, maybe some of you might have it, I don't know. If you have it, then just imagine your reaction. And also your car, brand new car, let's say, car. Say, if a bird throws dropping on a car, it's also like your heart, it cracks. And the mobile drops, it's also like your heart cracks. You could feel that. Which means why this mental, say the mental crack is happening. It's because of the belief that this mobile should not be impermanent, it should be permanent. It should be perfectly, say the brand new as it was how I got it. So this and then of course the mobile wear and tear happens and it falls. So with this then the crack happens, and then the crack happens to your heart. It's so painful. And likewise the cars, brand new cars, you don't have a separate lane for your new car. It's the same lane. All the drunk drivers, they drive. All the old, say 20 years old car, and they drive. You have to drive on the same lane. And the people, they don't care. They hit your car, and instantly there's so much anger coming in you. There must be many drivers here. Raise hands. Those who drive car, those who drive, raise your hands. Raise hands. What's it like when you're driving a new car? Somebody just cuts. What happens? So much anger comes in, right? You agree? So much anger comes in. Okay. So this is where there's a problem of our believing what is impermanent as permanent. So that creates so much unnecessary problems. And for example, the wars happening in the world, Ukraine war, is a belief that our nation should be permanent. Our nation should be the bigger nation. And expansionism happening in the world. All these border tensions, believing that our nation must be strong and permanent. Permanent and strong, right? And what is that? The permanent security, the permanent member of the Security Council, right? So believing, actually the word is impermanent, and these people they create an illusion. But impermanence as permanent, they create a concept, permanent members of the Security Council. So this is where, and just look at, say 2000 years ago, there were very powerful kingdoms, like the Genghis Khan in Mongolia, like the Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, and even in Tibet, King Thosamling Gampo. He was so powerful that he conquered many parts of today's China. And like now where are they? They're all gone. They also thought the same way. Once they also thought that Alexander the Great, the word great is added. That I'm great, I should be, remembered in the world as great. And now gone. Right? And the big pharaohs, the huge pyramids. What are these? Tombs. For what? Burial ground. Why this? We only need 6 by 3. Why we need a huge structure? Feeling that I'm somebody special. Right? So now this special person, today, archaeologists, they dig, what is there, This is illusion. Believing impermanent phenomena as permanent. This illusion, and creates all these problems. In those days, believe it or not, if somebody says that I'm an archaeologist, I want to see what your pharaohs like, in those days, people will be crazy. They will think that you are crazy, you are insane. They will take you to mental hospital. And today, the archaeologists, they freely do it. Right? There's nobody around you. Right? It's just like a corpse, no respect. Right? Forget about let alone having respect as a king. Big pharaoh. But it's just, this is how, we live in the illusion. This is what creates all our problems, seeing impermanent phenomena as permanent. Then impure things as pure. Again, this is a major problem with us, our problems. So I take a shower and I think that I'm very clean. And so in the metro, in the train, in the aeroplane, somebody hits you, it's like, I'm clean and you are dirty. And the other person feels the same thing. You are dirty and I'm clean, right? And say, for example, this is how, say, somebody takes up the chocolate or whatever, keep it, whatever, and put it back. Then no, it's very dirty. You are allowed to keep it there. Yours one is clean. Other people, they do it, it's dirty. So this is our illusion of seeing impure things as pure. And so with this, so many problems happen. So this is where the Buddha describes the people like us as like small children. Small children, they don't see the reality more closely. Okay. Then the misery as happiness, misconceiving the misery as happiness. In fact, this is one thing which is a big the problem. So what is actually, say for example, say one time I met at the airport. I met a gentleman. So he came to me, directly he smiled at me and he introduced himself and he said, "You're going to Dharamsala?" I said, "Yes." And it was a little unusual that he is so friendly. And I also asked him where he came from, and he said that I came from this place. I'll keep it confidential. This place. And he introduced me. I'm the owner of this 5-star hotel. there's the whole, what do you call it, the chain of this hotel. He's the owner of this hotel. And then said, why did you come here? He said, I came for litigation case, for court case. And he said, literally, I have 700 court cases, he said. He's a man of wealth. And yet, this wealth, what attracted him to this 700 litigation case? He said that for all the minor things I don't come. I send my lawyers. For the major things I showed myself. And what made me attracted to these 700 court cases is because of his wealth. And what is this wealth for? For what? We all make wealth. What for? So that we'll have a happy life. Now this is creating miseries on him. Always he has to show up. And what happened was that one time he told me that one time his uncle, there was a property fight over the property between the two brothers, his father and his uncle, the two brothers. And because of this continuous fight, one day we call them the dacoits. 5 dacoits came, they started to shoot at him. And they were all sent by his uncle. Once his father and uncle, two brothers in the same family. If somebody says something bad thing towards the brother A, brother B is there to defend. Somebody says bad to brother B, brother A is to defend. But now they've become the two worst enemies. They're fighting each other, shooting at each other, and shooting at one's own nephew. So this was because of the property. So what is seen as a source of happiness has now become a source of fear and source of miseries. So the reality is that these are the miseries, but they appear in the facade of happiness. And the ordinary people were being made to believe that this is the happiness. We chase after these, and then end up into more miseries. And the brothers and sisters, the family, all the family litigation cases, they are mostly over the property fights. Okay, so we see that what is suffering is viewed as happiness, and these miseries ensue. And then finally, what's the last misconception? Misperceiving selfless nature as selfhood. Okay, so this selfless nature, and oftentimes people may think that selfless, compassion, these are very soft, something spiritual. It has nothing to do with spirituality. Selfless here simply means, say, objective reality. Selfless means the emptiness of objectivity. Emptiness of objectivity. What lacks objective existence is talking about the ontological reality. In other words, it's talking about the ontological reality. What is the ontology there? What's reality out there, independent of your mind? What is really out there? This is known as the ontological reality. So, ontologically speaking, what does not have objective existence, you see them as objective real. That is known as the misconceiving selfless nature as of selfhood. And you may get a little lost here about the selfless nature as selfhood. Let me give an example of, let's say, watching a movie. How many of you have watched a movie in a movie theater? Raise hands. In a big movie theater. Okay, good. Let's say that you are watching a movie here. And where is this movie coming from? Anyone? From behind. From the projector, movie projector. And where's the movie projector? Behind you. You agree? Good. Okay, so let's see that you are watching the movie on the screen, but the movie is not from the screen. The movie is coming from the projector. You agree with me? The movie is not from the screen. It is on the screen, but not from the screen. It is coming from where? Coming from projector. Where's the projector? Projector is not on the screen, it is behind you. You're getting it? So likewise, everything is like the movie. Everything is like a movie. They're all coming from the projector, like your own mind. But when you look at the people around you, when you look at things, you see them as though not projected by your mind, but so objectively there from the object. Okay, so just look at somebody who is sitting next to you. Look at somebody who is sitting next to you. Okay, I did not ask you to smile. I just asked you to look at the other person sitting next to you. Okay, look at the other person sitting next to you. Still, you cannot control your smile, I can see that. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Now, let's say that just think of the same person who made you smile. Think of the same person who made you smile just a moment ago. Think of that person without looking at the person. Don't look at that person. Close your eyes, then think of the same person who made you smile. Okay, lucky that there's nobody smiling now. If you smile, it is time for you to go to mental hospital. Right? Say, why in the first case, this is a very serious question. Why in the first case, when you are looking at when you look at the face of somebody else, it made you smile. But when you think of the same person, it doesn't make you smile. Why? This is a very serious question. Anybody? Quick. Yes.
I think the person is real, but not the person in my imagination.
Okay, the person who made you smile, the first moment when you look at the other person, you know that the person is real there. You're getting real there, and therefore it made you smile. But when you think, you know that it's not the real, it's what your mind is thinking. So, what your mind is thinking means your mind is the subject, and the person is the object. In the first case, you will see the person as objectively real. In the second case, you will see the person as subjectively real, coming from your subject. When you see that's coming from the subject, your smile stops. There's a total composure within you. I ask you not to smile, you can stay without smiling. So there's control in your own emotion. But with the first, when you see the objectively real, invariably the smile comes to you. Whereas if you don't like the person, invariably you're plain, what do you call it? Frown or blank face, right? Comes to you, which means that you don't like the person. You see the object as the person is object real. So when you look at the other person, do you see the person as watching a movie or not like a movie? How do you see the person? The movie, you know that is coming from the projector, right? Say, when you look at the other person, how does the other person appear to you? Like a movie projected by your own mind, or so independently real? Okay, so this is known as the person is seen as objectively real. You see the person as objectively real, and this is the deception. So in reality, everything around there all comes from your own mind, from the subject, not from the object. But on the contrary, we see them as coming from the object. And you are so keen, how do I know this? Right? How do you know that the things are all coming from the subject, not from the object? How do you know this? So be patient. We require that we have the next few days session. Okay. And particularly when we do on emptiness, when you do emptiness, let us make sure that you take good rest. Because that for emptiness, how your mind, how your brain is going to be activated is going to be very differently from how your brain works otherwise. So therefore it can make you feel very tired. Some of the elder friends, some of the elders, they would say that, are you sure you want to attend Geshe-la's retreat? indicating that the retreats are going to be very intense. So make sure that you have enough energy to run through. Okay. So these are the four misconceptions. What are they? Misconceiving impermanent phenomena as permanent, misconceiving impure things as pure, misconceiving suffering nature as happiness, misconceiving selfish nature as selfhood. You have to learn all these and then try to relate this to a life within while being here, and even after leaving this place to your respective places. Think of the sea, how relevant, how these four misconceptions they lead to my own miseries. Just see how efficacious, how true that is. It is very helpful. And once you realize this, you will come to really become to sense that our life is way easier, way easier, and the unnecessary problems will all stop. If you if you're mindful of what these four misconceptions are and how I should not be succumbed to these four misconceptions. I should not be under the sway of these four misconceptions. So to counteract the four misconceptions, the Buddha taught these four seals. What are the four seals? All contaminated things are all composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are suffering nature. Everything is the nature of emptiness, selflessness. Transcending sorrow is peace. Or transcending sorrow is absolute peace. Transcending sorrow is nirvana, is fine. Okay. So we study these four lines. When we study these four lines, we have to know the four lines, the meaning of the four lines, each of the four lines. Number two, we need to know how the first line is linked with the second one is linked with the third with the fourth. The links, the connections is also required to be understood. Some people, they know what these four are, but they cannot link them. Then the purpose, a great purpose of these four, these seals is defeated. First, all composite things are impermanent. Okay, let's say that why I told you why these four teachings are referred to as the seals. Anybody who remembers? Yes, here, Ben.
Sealed by the Buddha.
Metaphorically sealed by the Buddha, indicating what? Raise hands. Yes, there.
They're inaccessible or closed off.
Okay. Okay. Manjari. Authoritative meaning that they are very, they have to be followed. They have to be followed. Some people they dislike the word authority, right? Authoritative. Oh. All right. Your meaning is very different. It's a very beautiful English. But people like me may attach this word with the authority, right? Okay, authoritative meaning they are very efficacious for somebody who seeks the total fearlessness or nirvana, freedom from the miseries. These four must be practiced. Okay, good. And the analogy, as I said earlier, the Buddha very clearly indicated that even his own teachings, he said that they are contextual. Sometimes they hold true at one place, it may not hold true at other places. In one time it may hold true, other times it may not hold true. For example, let's say that Buddha is very particular that his followers, particularly the monastics, should not be drinking alcohol. And one time, one of his disciples was sick, and then he went to the doctor, and the doctor said that for you the only cure is the alcohol. And he said, no, my teacher, they restricted the monastics from taking alcohol. But your teacher is very compassionate. Your teacher, the whole teaching of your teacher is grounded in compassion. You just check with the teacher. Then he went to the Buddha and asked if this is what the doctor is saying, that for me the treatment is on the alcohol. And the Buddha said, if this is only treatment, then you do it like this. Said, boil it 7 times. Boil it, cool down, boil it, cool down, boil it, cool down 7 times. Then the intoxicant power will be mitigated, will disappear. So the point is that although it was restricted, but at one point, for a specific reason out of compassion, Buddha taught under such situation this is permissible. In other words, that the teaching of the Buddha, what is restricted at one time, at other time with a different situation, the Buddha can be more lenient. Okay, and then also say the monastics not eating the evening meals, and in some of the traditions it was followed so rigidly, and this is an indication that the person did not really study the Buddha's the teachings. It's not that that no matter what you have to follow this. No, the Buddha's, as I said earlier, is extremely realistic teaching, very compassionate. And the Buddha said that generally speaking, no meals after noon for the monastics, no meals after noon, but for the monastic staff who are involved in, say, the labor work, running here and there, is exempted. And then who are sick, exempted. And who are traveling, where you're not sure where you're going to get your next meal. In those days, traveling is very difficult as compared to today. And where you may not get even the proper meal at the right time. So there, the Buddha said that these are all special situations, special considerations are there. So in other words, what I'm saying is that the teaching of the Buddha, the Buddha made it very clear that some of the teachings can be, be flexible. But whereas these 4 lines, if you don't want to get away from miseries, you're exempted. If you want to get away from miseries, then these 4 have to be followed. There's no the other possibilities, other choice. So this is where these 4 teachings are metaphorically sealed by the Buddha, referred to as the 4 seals of the Buddha's teachings. Okay, and as I said earlier, we're going to learn these first. Learn this, and after learning this, it is not that, okay, Buddha said it, so it must be true, I have to do it. No. First, the Buddha said that these are the 4 metaphorically sealed. So your job is to study them, and then subject them to analysis and see if it makes sense, right? If it makes sense that for you to become a professor in physics, you have to study physics. Without studying physics, yes? Is it true? To become a professor in physics, you have to study physics. There's no other choice. Yeah, so there's a young physicist there. Okay. She's got what? 93%. She's in class 12.
Yeah, 93.
93%. Wow. Okay. So what I'm saying is that there's no the other choice. If you want to become a professor in physics, right, then you have to study physics. So likewise, if you want to get away from miseries of life, you have to follow these 4 lines. So just see how true it is. It's not that somebody is forcing you. These are given to you, and then you take it and subject them to analysis and see if it makes sense. If it makes sense, apply. If it don't make sense, drop. As simple as that. Okay, so the first one is all composite things impermanent. Okay, I have 7 minutes more. So here, in the first few sessions, I have to run through. All composite things are impermanent. Composite things. What do I mean by composite phenomena? Don't leave any stone unturned when you're learning something. Composite phenomena, what does it mean by composite? Impermanent phenomena, what does it mean by impermanent? You have to know all these vocabularies. Composite phenomena is a phenomena which is composed of the material parts or temporal parts. Let me say this again. Composite phenomena is a phenomena which is constituted of material parts or temporal parts. What is temporal parts? Your question. The first, material parts. For example, do you agree with me that my hand is made of millions of atoms? So atoms are material parts. You agree with me? So this is my hand as a composite phenomena because it is composed of millions and billions of material parts. And my mind, it is not made of atoms. My mind is a composite phenomena. Yet it is not made of atoms. It is made of temporal segments, temporal parts. What do you mean by temporal parts? Parts in time. Parts in time is known as temporal parts. For example, let's say that I'm happy today. Today is made of 24 segments, 24 hours. So first part of the 24 parts of the mind, and second part, third part. So there are 24 parts to this mind, of today's mind. And first hour of mind has again 60 parts in time. Because 1 hour has 60 minutes. You agree with me? So these parts, the way manner in which divide the mind into parts pertain to the time is known as temporal parts, parts in time. Okay, so although the mind does not have the material parts, but it has temporal parts. So what is made of the temporal parts or the material parts, these are known as the composite phenomena. For example, the person. The person is made of material parts as well as the temporal parts. For information, what is a material substance? What has a material substance should necessarily have temporal parts as well as material parts. But what does not have a material substance but is a composite phenomena consists of temporal parts only. Whereas material parts should necessarily have the material parts as well as temporal parts. But those with temporal parts may not have the material parts. For example, all girls should be human beings, but human beings may not be girls. Right? Okay, so this is this meaning of the composite phenomena. The person is a composite phenomena. Your mind is a composite phenomena. The table is a composite phenomena. And the COVID is also a composite phenomena. COVID is made of what? COVID virus is made of some DNA molecules wrapped in the fatty tissues, some fatty thin layer of the tissue. That's COVID. Okay, so that's also made of, the material particles. Okay, so that is the composite phenomena, and the first line says all composite things are impermanent. When we speak about impermanent, they are, broadly speaking, there are two kinds of impermanent phenomena, and then later on I also like to take to the classification of impermanent to three. The two, gross impermanent phenomena and the subtle impermanent phenomena. Okay, now because this is going to be like 21 sessions with the flow there, with the momentum there. I also like to take you to the technicalities. Not only just very simple teaching, but also going to the technicalities. But don't be afraid. Don't be scared to go into the technicalities. Okay. What was I saying? Two kinds of impermanent phenomena. One is the gross impermanence, and the other one is subtle impermanence. Gross impermanence and the subtle impermanence. What is gross impermanence? Gross impermanence is an impermanent phenomena. Gross impermanent phenomena is an impermanent phenomena whose continuum comes to an end. Gross impermanence is an impermanent phenomena whose continuum comes to an end. For example, 2020, 2021. 2021, the year 2021, it already came to an end. That continuum stopped already. And our youth already, okay, some of you are still very young, like me. Youth is already gone, right? Youth is gone. That is the youth of those in the 50s. What about those in 40s? Youth is gone, not gone? Gone. What about those in 30s? Okay. Those in 30s will say that no. Those in 40s will say that they are a little envious of the 30s. They'll say gone. Okay. So they say your youth. Invariably, one day, it'll disappear. It disappeared or this will disappear. So that is the gross impermanence. And the gross impermanence is very important that we need to think of the gross impermanence. It's very important to make our life easier, to make our life more calm and peaceful. Otherwise, we don't think about these. And you say, in my case, I'm already 50, at the 55. And one day it's going to be like, in fact, when I was just hitting 50, we started another master's course. And somebody told me that, Geshe, are you sure you're going to stay in Tibet for those 6 years? Now 6 years passed, right? So that's how the time flies. And how many of you sense that time really flies? Really sense? Okay. Those of you who are in your mid-20s, you may think that time is flying. Those who are in your 30s will say that, yes, it really flies. In your 40s, you say that, yes, of course it flies. I don't like it. Then 50s, what happened? The last 20 years is gone, right? 20 years is gone. 30 years is gone. Where is it? Right? So this is how our mind, as you grow older, this is how we can see the impermanence. But don't wait till it happens naturally. We should remember these realities of impermanence way ahead of time. While you are still in your 20s, is there anybody who in your, say, the teenage, the boy there? How old?
16.
16. Okay. Anyone else in your below 20? Less than 20? Yes, over there, a physicist. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Yes, Insela. Okay, 3. 2 boys and 1 girl. Okay. Let's not wait till the impermanence hit us so hard. We have to think of these way ahead of time. Think about this, and believe it or not, your life will be, you can see that many of the unnecessary problems can be stopped because of this reflection of the impermanence. Okay. For example, to think about, sometimes it's say, in your life where the people who are so close to you, they leave the world. It's extremely painful. Let's not forget these experiences. Of course, they are very painful, but we do have to remember these, and this will take us to know the reality more and more widely, broadly. And also think about, for example, let's say that for me, for example, say the Queen Elizabeth, she has seen so many presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, and so forth. And So this is what happened. And one day each one of us will disappear from this world. Each one of us. And in fact, to reflect on impermanence. This is extremely important, and we'll touch in this area more in the next session. Gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhiswatyata om gate gate paragate Parasangate bodhiswatyata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhiswatyata